Well, good Saturday morning, friends. Mark Holmes here, of course, with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. So let's get open for business and let's wake up the football gods. Man, it is Saturday. It is a rainy, soggy Saturday, but, you know, here comes the rain. You need the rain. You need the rain because we know the sunny days are coming. And here we sit a month away, just literally, we'll be on the road a month from, I think, today, or is it tomorrow? I got to look at the calendar. I think we're leaving on the 26th. I think we're leaving on the 26th. But we are going to be going to Kansas City. DMV, myself, David Wiley, Primetime Phil. We're going to be in an SUV, and Primetime is flying. Game Time is going to be riding up with us. Shout out to King David on Twitter, who reminded me that I'm an idiot because I didn't even notice it, but for whatever reason, my Mevo cameras down here were set at 480 instead of 1080. So that probably was actually better for most people because you don't really, some people you just don't want to see in high def. You just don't want to see people in high def. You know, I've always been told I have a voice for radio. Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I appreciate that. You know, I do make a lot of mistakes. I'm kind of like that one take guy. You know, maybe I should call my show One Take as opposed to First Take, because we always take the stuff one take and then it goes up and I don't always check it. So when the mixer was messed up, I didn't realize it till people said, "Hey, there's no sound on your videos." And I love it. Okay. So together we'll get all this stuff together. All right. So I have to say, I feel good about what the Cowboys have been doing, okay? And at first I started thinking, were these moves just some moves that were there to appease the masses? You think about it from last year, all of the negative publicity, all of the hate, all of the condemnation of the Joneses and, you know, just all of that negative stuff. Now, I've always been told there's no such thing as bad publicity. When people aren't talking about you, that's bad. So one way or the other, as long as they're talking, that's a good thing. And what I've kind of noticed a bit as I look through the talking heads and the shows and things, there's not as much Cowboy content on there because the Cowboys are deemed a team that's actually helping themselves. They kind of like looking at the Cowboys being a train wreck. They love the negativity. Well, for me, excuse me, one of my biggest worries may be alleviated or partially alleviated. I am still, you know, high school, I was an offensive guard. In college, I was a nose guard. Went from guard to guard, from offense to defense. And I recognize the battle within the game. And see, if you've played a position, from your perspective, you are going to look at the team and say, that's the place that you need to work on because you understand the dynamics of it. I understand being a nose guard, how important of a cog it is. And by being cussed out by the coach, what your role is. It's not about getting glory. It's about doing a job so others can. And that's how it is on the offensive line. When you think about Jimmy Johnson talking about how they built their offensive line, where they took a guy who was deemed a bust, that he was too fat, that the Commanders cut him, in Nate Newton, that they took him and they made him one of the best offensive linemen in the history of the Dallas Cowboys. They took Mark Tuney, who was a defensive tackle, and made him an offensive tackle. They took Mark Spignowski, an undersized guard, and made him a center. They took Gogan, was it Gogan? It was like a 5th or 6th round draft pick. They developed these guys and found guys where other people weren't looking for them. You can't get everybody on your roster as first-round picks. You got to find them in a multitude of places. And one of those places that we were fortunate enough to find was Terrence Steele. Terrence Steele, it's amazing that he's still even in the NFL. The fact that he was a rookie free agent, which, your chances of making a roster as a rookie free agent aren't real good to begin with. But to be one in 2020, when you've got COVID, you are coming out of college, you're not getting the big fat contract, you got to move to Dallas, and then there's COVID lockdowns. Can't work out with the team, can't go to a gym. You're probably living in an apartment or some friend's house on their couch. How are you strength training? How are you getting your body ready? And then you go through a training camp where it's shortened. You're not expected to play any football. There's no preseason games. And then Lyle Collins can't perform. And now you're thrusted into a starting role with all of that. And I equate it to being like, if you have to join a gang, you got beat in. He took his lumps. He was criticized. We had people that were ready to push him off a bridge. I don't want to ever see him play again. But his second year was really good. And with the exception of the first game of the season last year, until he got hurt, you didn't hear his name being called. And see, that's the mark of a great offensive lineman. You're not hearing them talk about him. That guy is doing damage. That guy is really, really good. And see, that's the difference of having a great offensive lineman. When we talked about Connor Williams because of all the penalties, or Lyle Collins because of all the penalties, it's not a good thing. And my worry was with the ACL injury, you're starting to look at this and say, will he be ready for training camp? He's an important piece. He is a huge piece. And after going through what we did with Michael Gallup, you start saying, man, okay, the Cowboys always overestimate good news on coming back from injuries. Usually, when the Cowboys say you're going to be back in 3 weeks, count on 6. That's usually how it works. They said Neville Gallimore would be out 4 weeks, and he was out for the first 12. They said Michael Gallup could be ready to start training camp and play week 1. What was it, week 5? But we have good news on Terrence Steele. This is a clip of him working out at Sports Academy at the Star. Take a look. Oh, I love this. Look at this. No brace. He's working on the footwork, okay? He's working on that footwork. Look at that. Oh, I love it. So if he is working in March with no brace on that leg, and I'm not saying that he's ready to play a game right now. He's not. You can still see that, we're working on planting that leg. We're working on getting that footwork together, that quick twitch. But now we're talking about he's got April, May, June, and then to July. He's got 4 months, 16 weeks to get that leg strong and ready to go. To me, this is huge news. This is as big as us getting Brandon Cooks. If he's ready to start the season, oh my goodness, we're in such better shape, because at least you can say, okay, we got our right tackle. We got our right guard. Biotish, we hope, will take another step up. We can say the right side is good. Now, the plan, of course, is Tyron Smith now going back to left tackle. And, of course, Tyler Smith going to guard. I still would like to have a backup plan. we have not had a sizable backup plan for Tyron Smith. And every year we go through this. If that line, if Tyron Smith is healthy, that's a good line. I'd be happy with that line. That Tyler Smith, with a year of working in the system, getting his body right. Because see, when you go from college, here's the thing that's crazy is you go from, all the games and stuff in college and national championships and all that, right? And you immediately start training for the combine. You are literally busting your ass coaching for the drills. And you're going through the combine and all those workouts, the meetings and everything else. You don't really have a break because the draft is next month. You're doing pro day workouts and things. You've got all this wear and tear on you. And as soon as you get drafted, you're going to the teams, getting your physicals and starting OTAs. You're working out for the season. And so you never really have a chance to catch your breath. So now Tyler Smith, let their body heal. Now understand the ins and outs of the NFL and put some mass on. That's where you see guys get their NFL bodies in that second and third year. And Tyler Smith will be a guy that you look to say, okay, let's take another step. Because he started out camp as a guard and went to go to tackle. If he's going to be playing guard and Tyron Smith is there, boom. But what I honestly want the Cowboys to do, and it's not a sexy thing, but invest money in a true swing tackle. You got to have it. You have got to have it. And I hope that they do that. If they do that in free agency, and we do still have some money, we still have some ways we can get cash. And this year is kind of a bargain basement shopper's year. We're not seeing humongous contracts being made. And it may behoove you to go ahead, while there's a lull, to go ahead and get those guys. So I'm excited about the offensive line. We still need to address the defensive line. And we will talk about that going forward because we still want to understand what's going on with Hankins. Hankins hasn't signed with anybody. The Cowboys definitely want to bring him back. We don't know if he's playing hardball for a better contract because Catboy is, doing Catboy things. But let's listen to rumors about Odell Beckham Jr. Because here's the thing that gets to be interesting. That as we look at the wide receiving market, Odell is still out there, surprisingly. Rumors were he wanted $20 million, but what we're hearing from him is $4 million ain't enough. The longer it goes, the more desperation will set in because you still see deals like Hopkins. At some point, the Cardinals are either going to have to keep him with that contract or wait till June 1st and try and trade him then and get more cap relief. They're going to have to do something. And the longer it goes, the less they're going to get. We've seen teams that have had Cowboys bring in another weapon that I would not be opposed to.
Beckham Jr.'s landing spot. You're looking at video footage of the workout he did in front of many teams recently. We've thrown out the Steelers and Chiefs this week. You just heard Robert talking about the Chiefs. The Jets still loom. As we know, Aaron Rodgers would like having OBJ in the fold if he can get to New York. But we start with you, Jeremy, as we bring back in Jeremy Fowler. What is the latest on Odell and where the market stands?
Well, Laura, I continue to hear that the New York Jets are a viable option and that there is some mutual interest to a point. So it hasn't graduated to a signing as of yet. The Jets are closely monitoring this. They believe they're going to acquire Aaron Rodgers at some point, and they are going to mold an offense around Rodgers and pass-catching weapons. Rodgers would like to have Beckham. Beckham is open to playing with a quarterback of that caliber. And so there's still some other teams, some big-ticket teams that are looking for receiver help, like the Bills, like the Chiefs. But the price point here is a bit of an issue. They don't want to spend big money. There hasn't been a lot of big free agent money in general during this second week, the second wave of free agency. So we'll see what Beckham's threshold is and how long he's willing to wait.
I think that threshold's important. You saw him tweet out He didn't ask for $20 million, or he's not asking for $20 million a year, but he needs more than $4 million. So somewhere in that range, right? And Tim, when you think about a landing spot that makes sense for him, what qualifications are important for that team, and maybe specifically that quarterback?
Yeah, I think the most important thing with where he lands isn't necessarily like, hey, just pick the team. It's, do they have an established quarterback, and do they have somebody that can keep him happy, basically? I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. is going to end up in a scenario, because of his age and injury history, where he's playing over 60 snaps a game. I just don't think that he's at that place in his career. Now, he's still going to view himself as a number one, and so when he gets out on the field, he's going to want the football. And so if he's playing 40 snaps, I think he needs to be playing with a quarterback that, essentially is somebody that can attack any area of the field at any point. And so I think, like, all right, well, we're talking about the Jets. We're talking about the Jets because Aaron Rodgers could be there. Robert earlier brought up Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes. Both those quarterbacks, that's kind of the makeup of them. I think he needs to play in a situation like that to be happy and to be successful.
The other thing I think he probably wants to do is win more. Obviously, he wants to make money, but at this point, why not try to go somewhere that's really going to contend? Let's go to the Cowboys, where Zeke was released last week. Tony Pollard, of course, signing the franchise tender yesterday. So he's set to be the feature back once he gets healthy there. But what about Zeke? Where does the vet, who still has some juice, okay, despite what people say, end up? Jeremy, what is the latest on Zeke?
Well, we know via our Adam Schefter that the Bengals, the Eagles, and the Jets are preferred destinations for Ezekiel Elliott.
That's his preferred.
Some teams and some people around the league, they believe the Bengals here could be looming large, because I'm told they're looking to add a running back, either free agency or the draft, either to pair with Joe Mixon, or if they were to move on from Mixon, they could save nearly $8 million in cap space. But I do expect the Bengals to make a move at some point, and Elliott would sort of play into their mold as wanting a power option running game. And so, the Jets and some of these other teams, they have 2 or 3 backs. They have an identity there already. So you have Ezekiel Elliott and you have Kareem Hunt. Those are the top 2 options still available. And Elliott seems more willing right now to sign here soon. Kareem Hunt's probably going to wait a little bit.
Yeah, Tim brought this up yesterday just about some of the short yardage situations and the goal line situations potentially with Zeke. He does still and has still scored touchdowns. Robert, where do you want to see Zeke end up?
Well, when you talk about Zeke, those touchdowns, 22 touchdowns over the last 2 years, that makes me want to see him with the Jets. Now, what Jeremy is saying about the Bengals possibly moving on from Joe Mixon, if I'm Ezekiel Elliott, that's where I'm going, because I know I can still be a feature guy. But I think Ezekiel Elliott thinks he's a feature guy, but the league may view him more so as a complementary piece. A third down back who can catch the ball out of the backfield. A third down back who can pass protect. In short yardage, 3rd and short, 4th and 1 situations last year, he converted 17 of 21 of those. So he can still be a difference maker if you put him in the right role. But I would like to see him go to the Jets, and I know the Jets running backs hate to hear that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not a matter of Zeke Elliott it can't play. And, it's a matter of cost. And unfortunately, when you start talking about, you got to understand, you got 53 players on a roster with $224 million that have to feed all of those guys. When you divide that 53 into the 224, you're basically around $4.2 million on average for a player. So literally, you look at the cost for Zeke Elliott is taking up 4 shares of the kitty. And you have to justify the money you spend, because if you spend that much on Zeke, then that means you have to get bargains elsewhere to make up for that money. It's basically eating up about $12 million of pie more if you go by average, so to speak. And herein lies the problem. Zeke, probably one of the best, if not the best, blocking back there. He has saved Dak Prescott's ass many, many times. One of the best short yardage guys that you'll get in goal line. But can you justify 4 shares of the pie to that position? Here's the thing. Because we're getting rid of Zeke, you got to look at it and say, Zeke going means $6 million for Brandon Cook. $6 million, what we're paying Brandon Cook. It still leaves money to bring in other talent. It's conceivable that you could bring in a Bobby Wagner for literally about $6 million for the first year. So you have to look at it from the standpoint of, we are better off with Zeke Elliott here, or am I better off with us getting Brandon Cook, Ronald Jones, run back because he's only $1 million, and potentially a Bobby Wagner? That's 3 pieces of the pie. That you follow what I'm saying? Literally, the money that we are saving with Zeke could potentially be those 3 guys on the roster. And if you get a Bobby Wagner is going to make that run-stopping defense better. Brandon Cooks, say what you will, haters and all that, he's going to be better than Noah Brown. Ronald Jones as another role-playing running back, so that way we don't run Tony Pollard in the ground, because Tony Pollard is more effective if he's getting 15 to 20 carries maximum or touches of the ball. For $1 million, yeah. It's painful. It will hurt, especially if he goes to the Eagles, but he wouldn't be the first one. We've seen Orlando Scandrick go there. We've seen DeMarco Murray go there, and so on. And, you know, in my lifetime, I've seen Emmitt Smith go to the Cardinals. I've seen Tony Dorsett go to Denver. And they were never the same guys. None of them were ever the same as they were when they were here. Fortunately, Tony Dorsett broke his leg early in the season. Emmitt Smith was just there to pad the numbers. DeMarco Murray, that first year was a disaster with the Eagles. He was productive for the next couple in Tennessee, but still wasn't anything like that 1,800-yard season. And sadly, the thing about football is you can't get attached, because it is constantly changing, churning over and over and over again. Love Zeke. I'm going to miss Zeke, but unfortunately, it was a necessary evil. All right, good people, don't forget that this evening, sometime 3-4-ish, Michael Anthony Fitness Reactions channel, him and BJ will be doing the Gummy Bear Challenge. This gummy bear is $9 million on the Scoville scale. I don't know why the hell you put hot sauce in a gummy bear, but hey, who am I to argue? All right, good people. We will see you with any news that happens with the NFL and as well as the Cowboys. Hope you have a great day. I got a lot of work to do in the workshop, and I'll see you there.
Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Sports Report.